In a world where everyone seems to desire some sort of communication with the spiritual world, many Christian churches have abandoned the spiritual practices of the early church and have solely focused on what some call cerebral Christianity. This video is the testimony of a pastor in Northern California who was forced to recognize that his approach was leaving many in the dark.
They asked me to come pastor that church, and so I got a hold of this guy, and I said, "Hey, let's do this thing. Let's just forget about everything that we've learned through the traditions of the elders, and let's follow the example of Christ, who went about doing good and healing those who are oppressed of the devil." Of course, we didn't know how to heal those who are oppressed of the devil, and so we said, "Okay, let's start by doing good." And so we developed this ministry motto: find a need and meet it, find a hurt and heal it. And we've been following that since 1987 when we came down here. And that led us into the deep needs of society, which, again, being a cowboy from Idaho, I didn't realize that Satanism and vampirism and weird cults, I didn't realize those things actually existed in America. So I was thinking more along the lines of helping the poor and the needy and the orphans and the single moms and stuff. But anyway, our heart was right. And so we built the church from 70 to over 1,500. It was going great. And we did it through just meeting urgent needs and loving people, helping people who were in need. And I was happy with that. And then came that old prophet from Borneo, Jack Sisler. And he said, right as we were beginning to grow as a church, he called up. He said, I was a spiritual father to your dad, and now he's in heaven. I want to be a spiritual father to you. And he said, God told me to buy a book and to bring it to you, and I've written a prophetic message in it to you. And so that was just a shock. I thought the church was going well at the time. But he brought me this book. He came to set the captives free. And remember, I was a cowboy from Idaho, right? And I looked at that book and I just thought, I'm not going to read that book. That's ridiculous. It's all kind of weird stuff on that book. And so I said to him, I said, wow, Jack, that looks pretty weird. And he did this prophetic thing. My dad did it when he said, "Hey, you can't be a leader and be passive," but put his hands on my shoulder, looked me in the eye, and he said, son, the world is much weirder than you have ever imagined. So anyway, I just thought, oh, whatever. So he wrote in it this message, and this is the original book he gave me. You can probably see part of the message there, but this is a wild book about the rituals of defilement that were concocted by Aleister Crowley to completely defile a human soul. But he wrote in it, may this true story help you take your rightful place in the front lines of spiritual warfare. Love, Jack Sisler. And it's like, well, whatever. So anyway, he left. And the long and short of it is he asked me to read the book. I tried to. I thought, too weird. I put it away. I would have thrown it away except for my regard for Jack, because he was the only guy growing up that I ever knew that actually cast out demons and, saw people healed when he prayed for him. And so just out of respect for him, I saved the book. But anyway, every 2 years for 8 years, he'd call and see if I'd read the book. And at the end of that time, he confronted me and said, I'm going to be there this weekend. I know you haven't read the book because you're rebellious and stubborn and proud. He really yanked me around by the short hairs. But anyway, he flew up to Northern California from Chile because he was a worldwide missionary. And that's when he gave me the heads up that I'd be face to face with the devil and wasn't ready for it. Now, during that time, Gabriel, my wife, who again, A. Allen's granddaughter, she kept saying, the verse says that Jesus did good and healed those who were oppressed of the devil. And we're not doing that second part. And I kept telling her, yeah, I don't know how to do that second part. So I'm going to get an A+ on doing the first part. And if God wants to teach me somehow how to cast out demons, he's going to have to teach me. I just don't know how to do that. Well, my grandpa used to do that. And, she'd tell stories from A. Allen's big, tent meetings where 20,000 people would come and hundreds, sometimes thousands would be healed. So anyway, that was the backdrop to what was going on. And it was during those times that I began to have some weird supernatural experiences that I knew was I knew it was the power of evil. I just didn't know exactly what category to put that in. And even more, I didn't know what to do about it. I just thought, oh my gosh, that's terrible. One of them was we had an outreach into juvenile hall. And I remember hearing from a boy that was converted in juvenile hall. And he was from a generational Satanist family. And so he was born into Luciferian Satanism. He was just 17 years old, but he tried to give his life to the Lord, and his power spirit threatened to kill him and left him unconscious on the floor of the juvenile hall enough that the overseers of juvenile hall were afraid that he was going to die there, and they wouldn't be able to explain it because it was supernatural. That there would not be any marks on his body, and they'd take him to the doctor, and then and say he's perfectly healthy. I don't know why that happened. So anyway, he came first and said, "Do you have power over Lucifer?" And I thought, geez, Louise, we're going right to Lucifer. But I told him, I said, well, technically, I remember this young man saying, technically won't work for me. I'm trying to decide whether or not I can survive if I become a follower of Christ. And my power demon says no, that he will kill me unless I renounce Christ. So that, kind of pegged my meter. I just like, man, I've been doing like poor and needy and stuff, but this is out of my league. That happened, and sadly, that young man was killed by his power spirits. And that really weighed heavy on me because I knew that he came to me for help. And I just wasn't prepared to actually help him. And so just my conscience was grieved at that. And I thought about, Jack saying the world is much weirder than you've imagined. And God's called you to make a difference in that. I was just trying to sort life out, but I really was heavy hearted that had happened.